You know, you guys aren't going to make it into the kingdom by calling the Messiah Jesus. Jesus is bald. It's not going to look well for you in the end. You need to understand that by calling the Messiah Jesus, you are actually worshiping someone else. You're not worshiping the Messiah. You're not worshiping God. You're not in covenant by doing this thing. You guys got to understand that celebrating these pagan holidays is spiritual idolatry on the Father, which is the sin of death. None of this stuff is going to look good for you. It's not going to look good for you. If you're not keeping the 10 Commandments, if you're not eating clean, you're not abstaining from pork, sushi, crab, all those dirty things of the world, if you're eating unclean, then you won't make it into the kingdom. If you're celebrating all these pagan holidays and the Asherah pole from Christmas, that's spiritual idolatry, which leads to death. It is not going to look good for you guys. It specifically says in Colossians 2:8 says, "Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ." That is exactly what you guys are doing. You guys are really chasing after like vain deceit, which is the tradition of men. You're being deceived. It says it in the Bible that the whole world will be deceived. Satan will deceive the whole world. You guys got to understand. In the Bible it says, "I come in my Father's name, and you it's not me you receive, but you will receive another." That person that you received is Jesus. It's Jesus. If he says, "I come in my Father's name," which is Jehovah, and his name is Yeshua, which means salvation, and Jehovah means Yah saves, there's a correlation between that. There's no correlation between Jesus and, being saved by grace under Jesus. Because if you're not keeping the 10 Commandments, you're not eating clean, if you're not keeping the Sabbath day, which is on Saturday, dawn to dawn, then you're not in covenant. And that's what the Father wants. He wants us to be in covenant. That's what he wants from us. He even tells you, "This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness." All right? You guys got to understand that, James 2:10, "For whoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all." So if you break one commandment, you're breaking all 10 commandments. So when you're sitting here and you're celebrating these pagan holidays, or you're wearing this graven image, the cross, it's the same thing like in Mount Sinai, when Moses came down with the 2 tables of stone, with the 10 Commandments. But what did he find out? They had a golden calf, and they were worshiping the golden calf. It's the same thing with the cross. It's the same exact thing. That cross is that graven image. It's pretty much the same thing as the golden calf. Isaiah 44:10-20. "Who has formed a god or molten a graven image that is profitable for nothing? Behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed, and the workmen, they are of men. Let them all be gathered together, let them stand up, yet they shall fear, and they shall be ashamed together." Ashamed, why? Because you're worshiping another god. You're committing spiritual idolatry on the Father, which is the sin that leads to death. It's not going to do anything good for you. All right? It's the same thing in Hosea 2:2. "Plead with your mother. Plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts. What would that be considering? The cross. The cross that you wear right in between your breasts, that is the adultery. That is the spiritual adultery on the Father. That is what you are doing. You got to take off these crosses. It says that in the Bible that you should not have these things in your home. It's an abomination. If you have them in your home, you'll be a cursed thing like it. You got to sit down and realize that you're being deceived through the Christian church, through the apostate church, which the Father says he will come back and his wrath will be appointed to these churches. Your pastors are lying to you. He tells you, John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commands. All right. John 15:10, if you love me, or if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. So, Revelation 22:14, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. So if you're not keeping these 10 commandments, and if you're not throwing away, after this video, you're not throwing away your cross, if you're not throwing away your Christmas tree, if you're not in that persona to where you realize that you need to get into covenant, then you are breaking all 10 commandments. You're breaking all the 10 commandments, because you break one, then you break them all. So you commit this spiritual idolatry on the Father by wearing these graven images and by celebrating these pagan holidays, which is the sin of death. And you're breaking all 10 commandments. You're breaking all of them. All right. Deuteronomy 5:8, thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. So you're not, in no shape, way, or form are you supposed to be having a graven image. You're not supposed to be having a graven image. The cross is related to Tammuz, which is a sun god. That's who you're worshiping. Your prayers aren't even heard because you're worshiping to another god. Satan is deceiving you. All right, Deuteronomy 7:25-26, the graven images of their gods shall be burned with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therein. For it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. But thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it. For it is a cursed thing. That is what he means. You need to throw these things out. You need to not have any type of relationship towards these things. You need to cleanse yourself from all of these things. You need to repent. You're not gonna make it far by worshiping. You're not gonna make it far at all by worshiping these other gods and participating in these pagan holidays, which you have no idea how much sin is in these pagan holidays. When we go up to the Sabbaths, we go to Ezekiel 20:12. Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctified them. It is a sign between you and Jehovah. That Sabbath day, taking that Saturday off, not spending any money on that day, but getting in the Word and eating that book. That's what you're supposed to do on that Sabbath day. If you're not doing that, you're polluting the Sabbath. If you're all the people who think that, oh, Sunday's the Sabbath day. It's not the Sabbath day. You're polluting the Sabbath. That's what you're literally doing. All right. You're literally doing that. All right. And he tells you in 2 Timothy 4:3-4, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned onto fables. What is that fable? Your whole Jesus perception. That is the fable that you all believe in. That is whom you received. is not looking well for you guys. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God. This is Deuteronomy 8:11. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I commanded ye this day. So he commanded you to keep his commandments. This is how you get in the covenant. Once you get in the covenant and you keep the 10 commandments and you eat clean and you keep the Sabbath day, then you can get the spirit of truth. That is with grace. And that's where grace comes in. Grace helps you to have conviction. That's what grace is. Grace is the conviction you feel towards wanting to keep the 10 commandments, towards wanting to throw away all of these idols, towards wanting not to have any part with this Tammuz and this Jesus worship, all right, and this sun god worship, because that's exactly what you're partaking in. That's exactly what you guys are doing. All right, he tells you in Psalms 119:44, so shall I keep thy law continually forever and ever. He doesn't say for 2 seconds. He doesn't say for 2 days. He says forever and ever, meaning eternity, meaning everlasting, till the day you die. You're not supposed to go out here and be worshiping a Tammuz cross and all of this stuff like that. And Psalms 115:4-8, their idols are silver and gold, the works of man's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Feet have they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throat. They that make them are like unto them, so is everyone that trusteth in them. That is the Jesus on your cross. What does that sound like? It sounds like that Jesus on your cross. It sounds like that cross, that graven image. It's exactly what he's talking about. That's exactly what he's talking about. So you guys are really in error right now, and you guys really need to get out of the fables, come to the spirit of truth and realize that you guys are in error. All right, because this is what you're doing. Jeremiah 13:10. This evil people, which refuse to hear my words, walk in the imagination of their heart and walk after other gods to serve them and to worship them, shall even be as this girdle, which is good for nothing. You'll be good for nothing. It's the sin that leads to death. That is what you guys are doing. That is what you guys are doing. The Christmas tree. Literally, Jeremiah 10:1-5. Hear ye the words which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as a palm tree, Christmas tree, but speak not. Okay, this goes into the other verse that I was saying. They have eyes, but they see not. They have, you know what I'm saying? They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. There's nothing good out of what you were doing when you were celebrating Christmas. There's nothing good out of what you were doing when you're celebrating Easter, when you're celebrating Valentine's Day, when you're celebrating all of these pagan holidays. It does nothing good for you. And he tells you that. He tells you that. Titus 2:12, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. What does that mean to do? 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So if you're out here and you're so in love with the world, you're so dedicated to the world, you're not even worried about keeping the 10 commandments. You're not even worried about keeping the Sabbath day, which is the sign between you and Jehovah. You're so worried of your worldly affairs And 1 John 2:16, which is exactly in the next verse. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of this world. You guys got to understand, all right? And the thing is, this is the refreshing. What is happening right now, this is the refreshing. This is the refreshing. But God knows that you guys are not going to hear. God knows. With keeping those 10 commandments, you have to fulfill the royal law. You have to give up your life. It is a daily sacrifice. You have to give up your life, and you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself. How do you love your neighbor as you love yourself? By teaching them the covenants of promise. What is the covenants of promise? Keeping the 10 commandments, eating clean, not unclean, eating clean, keeping the Sabbath day, which is on Saturday, dawn to dawn. You're not supposed to go out and buy anything. You're not supposed to go out and be worried about, what's going on Instagram. You're not supposed to be worried about none of that bull crap. You're not supposed to be worried about none of that. You're supposed to be in the Word, eating the book. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Fortunately, you're supposed to be doing that every day. You're not supposed to go to church, and you're not supposed to listen to these pastors for them to indoctrinate you with their lies. You're supposed to go and seek the truth yourself. But the thing is, it tells you, Isaiah 28:12, to whom he said, this is the rest, wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. What's refreshing? It's like when you're hot outside and you want to drink a cold glass of water. This is that cold glass of water. This is that cold glass of water. If you're not keeping the 10 commandments and you're not eating clean and you're not keeping the Sabbath day, you're not in covenant. You're not in covenant. How do you love your neighbor as you love yourself? By teaching them the covenants of promise. That is what you are called to do. Be a servant to the Lord. And you're supposed to teach everyone that you come in path with the covenants of promise. You're supposed to tell them. You're supposed to rebuke them when you see them doing Christmas, celebrating Christmas, when you see them with this graven image. Because you're supposed to know better. If you know better than somebody, you're supposed to tell them. You're supposed to tell them what not to do. You're supposed to tell them what not to do. I'm telling you what not to do. Don't celebrate these pagan holidays. Don't celebrate Christmas. Don't celebrate Easter. None of them. Get rid of your crosses. Get rid of your cross, your crucifix, whatever graven image that you have in your home. Get rid of it. For you are a cursed thing like it. And it is good for nothing. It's good for nothing. There's only one God. We have all these denominations. There's only one God. There's only one God, and his name is Jehovah. And he sent his son Yeshua to magnify the law of the 10 commandments, to get rid of the sacrificial law. It's not grievous to keep the 10 commandments. It's not grievous to be in covenant. It's purifying. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's why in Matthew 22:36-39, which is the great commandment in the law? Yeshua said unto them, thou shalt love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This goes into what I was just saying about being in your worldly affairs and worrying about the world and what's going on in the world and what's going on Instagram and what's going on TikTok and what's like head up your ass type shit. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, which means it's like a burger. It's like a burger. You can't have one part of the bun and not the other part of the bun. You can't have one part of the bun and you can't have the other. You got to have both. That's what makes the sandwich. That's what makes the sandwich. So, I mean, like I said, Jeremiah 7:23. But this thing I commanded them, saying, obey my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk ye in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. that it may be well unto you. But if you're not doing that, if you're not doing what he commanded you to do, guess what you're doing? You're worshiping other gods. If you're not, and with worshiping other gods, you're doing your own little thing, which is the ways of this world. And you're being deceived. Wake up. Realize at the time that we're in, everybody knows that the world is coming to a very, very deadly place, but nobody wants to wake up. Oh, nah, we're just going to keep living how we living. Nah, we're just going to keep living how we living. A lot of lust, a lot of pride. We're just going to keep living how we living. Yeah, that's cool. Don't even realize when you go to church and they have these Christmas tree inside the church, guess what the church is doing? They're deceiving you. They're deceiving you. They're not teaching you the covenants of promise. They're not telling you how to love your neighbor as you love yourself. They're not doing any of these things. They're not doing any of these things. And you know what they're doing? They're following after the traditions of men. That's what they're doing. You know what they're doing? They're worshiping that graven image. That's what they're doing. And it's not going to look well for any of the people that are doing that in the last days. It's not going to do anything good for you in the last days. It's not going to do anything good for you in the last days. You guys need to wake up.